Okay guys, now let's listen to this piece of music and analyze it.
What? I don't know how to do this.
No worries, we can help you. My name is Elephant, and with the help of my friends, Parrot and Lion, we will be going over different obstacles that you might face when analyzing music through listening. You might have trouble determining the form, periods, cadences, modulations, and non-chord tones of the piece. For our lesson today, we will be using a piece by Beethoven named For Elise, so let's get started!
Okay, so I'm having trouble with identifying the form, cadences, periods, modulation, and non-chord tones by listening. What am I supposed to do?
Form is the overall structure of the piece, almost like paragraphs of an essay. The main types are binary, ternary, rounded binary, rondo, and sonata, as you can see. Listening for the overall type of form might be difficult if you confuse the main A and B and C parts with the smaller periods. One solution is to write down all the different things that you hear, which will often be the periods and sentences. Afterwards, look at the general picture and see if the parts you wrote down best fit a type of form. This way, you won't be confused if what you are hearing is a period or bigger. Just concentrate first on what different melodies you hear, and then look at the big picture.
Cadences are often easy to find, but difficult to identify. These occur when the melody slows down and seems like it's finished a thought. There are 4 types of cadences: authentic cadences, half cadences, plagal cadences, and deceptive cadences. The first type, authentic cadences, occur when you hear some kind of 5 chord, meaning you hear sol, ti, re, or fa going to a 1 chord, hearing do, mi, or sol. Next, you may hear a half cadence. You can identify these by hearing a sol in the chord, since a half cadence is any progression ending in a 5 chord. You could also hear a plagal cadence, which is a chord progression 4 to 1. To identify a plagal cadence, listen for fa mi somewhere in the chords. You can also identify this by thinking amen. Finally, although rare, you may also hear a deceptive cadence, with the chord progression 5 to 6. Listen for a somewhat jazzy texture, where you expect the piece to end in a 1 chord, but it deceives you, thus the name, with a deceptive 6 chord. Once you've listened for cadences, periods are simpler to find. A period is a series of thoughts or phrases which are completed by cadences. After identifying periods in music, you can familiarize yourself with the different ways to diagram the structure of music.
Finding modulation can often be difficult to detect. Modulation is when the piece changes from one key to another. Usually, when a piece modulates to a new key, it modulates back to the key it began with. There are a few main types of modulation: common chord modulation, common tone modulation, direct modulation, and sequential modulation. There are a couple of ways to detect modulation by listening. You can listen for a change in do, listen for a change from minor to major, or vice versa, listen for sequences that lead to modulation, listen for new accidentals. Through these strategies, it becomes much easier to hear modulation. Last but not least, you're bound to find non-chord tones in almost any piece you hear. These non-chord tones embellish a piece and add extra flair to the melody. Non-chord tones are exactly what the name sounds like: tones and notes that don't belong in the chord. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I find a non-chord tone just by listening to it? Well, there are a few strategies that you can use that will aid you in identifying them. You can always listen to notes that seem like they don't belong in the chord. You can also listen for notes that don't belong in the root scale. Additionally, listen for weird sounds. Most often, any weird sounds you will hear will mostly fall under the category of non-chord tones. And last but not least, be familiar with the different types of non-chord tones. This helps you easily identify them and recognize the way they work. Having a better understanding of non-chord tones will help you recognize them.
For Elise falls in the category of a rondo because it can be diagrammed as A, B, A, C, A. The piece begins with the following theme. Then switches to part B, and back to A, then to C, and finally finishes with A. You know which parts are A because it repeats, and parts B and C are named so because they are melodically different from part A. And since part A repeats so much with different stuff in between, then you have yourself a rondo.
Listen to measure 25 and pick out the notes in the chord which ends the period. As a side note, if you look into the music that precedes this chord, you will see that the cadence is the end of another parallel period. Listening to the cadence, which includes the notes in the soprano and the arpeggiated chords in the bass, you can hear a do and a sol. From this, and from the fact that it ends the entire first thought in the piece, you can assume that this chord is some kind of authentic cadence. After further investigation, you may see that this cadence is, in fact, a perfect authentic cadence. If you notice, between measure 62 and measure 79, you hear a theme. If you listen closely, you can hear that the theme between these two measures consists of two ideas separated by a cadence. Now listen closer. You hear that the first idea starts off the same way as the second. The beginning of both melodies sound very similar. Continue to listen to this period, and you will find that after the first two measures or so, the melody changes between the two ideas. This means that you can diagram the period as a parallel period, written as A, and then A prime.
Now listen closely. You'll notice that the piece modulates to a new key around measure 24. A way to hear this is to try to listen to a change in do, or just the overall feel of the music. If you do, you'll notice that the piece distinctly changes from minor to major, A minor to F major to be exact. Usually, when a piece modulates, it modulates to a closely related key and then changes back to the original key. It's your turn. Try to find where this piece modulates back to its original key. Did you hear that? That's right. Around measure 35, the piece modulates back to A minor. Listening for non-chord tones is a lot easier than it seems. This piece has clear examples of non-chord tones throughout. The main theme itself is filled with non-chord tones. At the very beginning, we notice some tones that don't seem like they fit in the chord. Listening further, we can notice that these in fact are called neighbor tones.
Wow, I never knew I could do so much with music. Now I really know how to listen to music. Thanks, guys!
You're welcome.
No problem.
Hey guys, am I late?
Get out of here, Lyle!